So we bought this, it was first wave of COVID, so it was the market had just stopped. So this property, someone actually had it under contract, they left all the hard money on the table and just walked away. And that was kind of the story for a lot of properties we looked at. No one really wanted to own property when half the population was supposedly gonna die and the other half was unemployed. So we kind of got ahead of the line. And even then, because it was our first bigger property, we still had to essentially write a resume on why they should sell to us, because people don't like you coming in and putting something under contract and not closing. So we bought it. Because of COVID, they didn't allow us to go into any of the suites. So we could only see the 2 that they said were vacant, take it over, and there were 7. So it was, it's 30% vacant, and this was our income at the time. So it was a little bit of a push. It was me and my wife, and we have 2 sons, and we had a Great Dane at the time. So we just come here, put them in the playpen, and renovate units. Pretty much that was our life till we got it stabilized. And back then too, like when we took this over, rents were $1,250 for a 3-bed, and we have one that just went for $1,750 now. So that the market is so different now. We were incentivizing people back then, like you had to put incentives in and stuff. And I think for sure people getting in the market today, it's hard to, you're only gonna see upside for the next couple of years, and I think it'll kind of be a trap a little bit if you don't know what the market used to be like. But we paid $4.8 million. There's 27 townhomes. They're all 3 and 4 bed. We took a 15% loan at the time. You couldn't get the 5% one. I'll touch on that a little bit later. 40-year AM. The debt part of it was a big portion, and it always is for me. It's something that's missed a lot, I think, in some of the courses, but the debt will make or break a deal, right? And so when we took this, and we have that loan for 40 years, we have 10-year where it's locked in at under 2%, right? So my philosophy's always been, if you can take the bank's money and buy this today, and you play that out even in 10 years at 3% inflation, you're paying the bank back with money that's worth 30% less. You play that out 40 years, you're giving them back nothing. I mean, in 40 years, the value of the dollar is gonna be 95% less than it is today. So the debt's a big portion. And so when interest rates started to rise, I always look to older people who've been around the market a long time and try to get advice. And a bunch of them were saying that the last time this happened, liquidity just dried up. And at the same time, you can't raise capital. And that's also the best time to buy because no one's there to buy. So I looked at this property. We had just got a value of $7 million on it. So we had lots of equity in it. And I was like, why don't we do a refinance? If we wanted to go all the way to 95%, we can pull about $2 million out. So you get your money back and a nice low return. We chose to do it differently. We did just a conventional second mortgage. We still pulled out about 900 grand, and we still only have the 85% loan to value, cash flowing property, and still have $1 million of equity in. So that's real estate when it works, and that's when debt works nicely. The other side of it though is we've looked at so many properties when bad debt's attached to it, that property just can't move. And for sure now, cap rates and interest rates they're either the same or negative on a lot of stuff. And if debt's attached to it that's bad, you just can't sell. You can't sell a property. So we're in a market now where you can take the 5% down loans, and that's fine, but just be aware of what that looks like. Most people are putting all those units into affordability. And in my opinion, that can be okay, but just imagine that over 10 years. That loan has to stand for 10 years. And if you try to sell that in year 8, if average rents are even 6% going up and you're only at 3, you're 30% less income, and you divide that by cap rate, your value of your property it's going to be very hard to sell that. For sure, if interest rates come down, you're tying this loan to the property. So keep an eye out for that. The 5% loans, I would have loved them when I started because we wouldn't have to put as much money in and stuff. But it's also it's very, very risky because the debt you have so little cash flow. So I always use an example just for easy. If you buy $1 million property and put 50 grand in, you need $5,000 to make a 10% return. And people are advertising big returns like that, or much bigger. The odds of that property making that $5,000 is, in the first couple of years, is zero. It's not probably gonna happen, something's gonna come up. As soon as you put more money in, your return drops so much when leverage that high. So if all of a sudden you put 20 grand in that property, your return dropped 30%, right? So people just keep that in mind when you're doing the debt portion. I relate it, we like to take long-term debt day one. So when we did this, we were locked in for 10 years, so it didn't really make us any difference. The market goes up and down, interest rates go up and down. We could just cash flow in this property. Obviously, it worked good where we could pull money out, but I like that safety. I don't think anyone's seen interest rates raising as high as they did in the last couple of years, and I definitely didn't. I would have been wrong every month for the last however long. I'm like, no, this is it, and it kept going up and up. I didn't, and who knows what it does in the future. So I like the safety of that. I always relate it to landing an airplane. If you have a wide enough runway that's long enough, the plane's probably gonna land safely. Once you start narrowing that and guessing on it, if you're taking bridge debt or stuff, it can all work, but it makes that narrower and shorter, and it's a lot harder to land that plane. So I think debt's definitely a big part. And I don't mean that, I don't want to make it like a negative thing or anything. I'm extremely bullish on real estate, probably more than I've ever been, and that just keeps increasing. We're immigrating people so fast into the country with absolutely no plan to build more houses. So we're gonna have a shortfall of 3.5 to 4 million homes in the next 7 years. So we'd have to build 850,000 homes a year just to meet that demand. We build 280 is the target, and we never hit it. So we're 500,000 houses short a year, and there's just no chance we get close to that. So you're seeing it in cities all over. Calgary, we had the huge rates, like rents have went up a lot more than they have here. That's because they have a lot less supply. So our supply is shrinking very quickly. When I moved here, we were 7. It moved down to, now we're at about 3% vacancy in the city, and we'll be at under 2%. We'll be at 1 point some in the next little bit here. And the difference in 7 to today is huge. Like, that's the difference in us incentivizing people always having vacancy to us having nothing. This unit, like, we can't even renovate it because it was rented so quick, right? Our model used to be we would go and renovate everything and get rents up, and now you're just getting rents up and not having to do it. So, and that will change again, but we have a window of time, I think, where you can still buy stuff where it makes sense, and I think that window's closing, and there's going to be, depending if it's interest rates or whatever, but I think that window is getting smaller and smaller on the opportunity to buy property. And so people, the question I get asked more than anything is, how do you get started? I don't know how many of you are in it or wanting to get started. It is different for everybody. There'll be people here today that are probably raising money, and people that are looking to, you can partner with people. Just find a model that works. Like, some people love the flip model. Some people are gonna like industrial. There's a million different ways to do it. If you only have a couple $1,000, go buy you can buy Alberta real estate companies on the stock market, right, as a REIT. So there's lots of ways to do it. Our company, like the first guy that probably ever, or not first, maybe he was the 3 or 4 first people that ever invested. He was always around, like, asking questions. He would always tour the properties and stuff, and then he went on to buy his own property, right, later on, because he got the confidence. So you can do it that way, and there's no shortage of opportunities or ways to do it.